One saw it coming. Not even Solo. The arena was dark. The crowd restless. The lights flickered not because of a production glitch, but because something, or someone, was coming. And when the screen cut to black, when the tension hit its boiling point, when the audience stood holding their breath, that's when it happened. Jacob Fatu returned, and he didn't come back for redemption. He came back for destruction. This is not just another wrestling storyline. This is a betrayal forged in blood, in silence, in months of watching from the shadows. Jacob Fatu, once thought to be exiled, forgotten, replaced, had been waiting. Watching. Biding his time while Solo Sikoa paraded around calling himself the new head of the table. The new leader of the bloodline. But in the Samoan dynasty, power isn't inherited. It's earned, in blood, in war, in survival, and Solo had just stepped into a battlefield he wasn't ready for. It began weeks ago, long before the cameras caught anything. Whispers of tension had circulated backstage. Solo had grown bolder, more brutal. With Roman Reigns still absent from the picture, he declared himself the undisputed chief of the bloodline. His words, not earned, just claimed. And when Zilla Fatu defected, when Tama Tonga disappeared, when chaos seemed to settle, everyone thought Solo had finally stabilized the empire. They were wrong. Behind the curtain, Jacob Fatu was silent. But his silence wasn't surrender. It was planning. Every match Solo won. Every member he recruited. Every time he mocked the legacy Roman Reigns built, Jacob was watching. And when the day came, he struck with no warning, no music, no promo. Just violence. It was during a high-stakes six-man tag match on SmackDown. Team Solo, flanked by his newly assembled loyalists, Thorn, Boa, and the mysterious newcomer known as Koa. The faction looked indestructible. They moved with precision, cruelty, dominance. The WWE Universe had started to accept it. Maybe this was the new bloodline. Maybe Solo Sikoa had truly conquered the throne. But as the final bell neared, and Solo prepared to deliver a Samoan spike to finish the match, the lights dropped. The arena was engulfed in darkness. The Tron lit up not with words, but with a single pulse of red light, one heartbeat. Then another. Then, silence, and then he emerged, Jacob Fatu, draped in black, eyes burning with fury, dreadlocks soaked in sweat and vengeance, stormed down the ramp like a force of nature. No music. No pyro. Just pure, terrifying intent. What followed was not a wrestling segment. It was a declaration of war. Jacob tore through Solo's men like they were made of paper. Koa tried to intercept. He was met with a brutal pop-up Samoan drop onto the steel steps. Thorn caught a steel chair to the ribs. Boa tried to run. He didn't make it past the barricade, and then Jacob turned his eyes on Solo. For the first time in his reign of terror, Solo Sikoa looked unsure. The enforcer. The man who once stared down Roman Reigns himself, took a step back, but it was too late. Jacob Fatu climbed into the ring and stood face to face with his cousin. No words. Just generations of tribal legacy boiling between them. The crowd didn't chant. They didn't scream. They stood in stunned silence, watching something ancient play out in front of them, not sports entertainment, but a civil war born from bloodline betrayal. Jacob struck first. A headbutt that echoed through the arena. A flurry of fists, savage and relentless. Solo fought back, but this wasn't a match. It was a punishment. Fatu speared Solo so hard the ring post shook. Then he lifted him into the air and planted him with a twisting muscle buster that left Solo Sikoa motionless in the center of the ring. The show ended with Jacob Fatu standing over Solo's body, breathing heavy, hands shaking, not with exhaustion, but with restrained rage. He looked straight into the hard camera. One phrase on his lips, unspoken but understood: "You forgot who I am." The fallout backstage was instant. Producers were in chaos. Security tried to intervene, but it was already too late. Jacob Fatu had made his move. And the message wasn't just to Solo. It was to everyone who thought they could rewrite the history of the bloodline. To Paul Heyman. To the WWE Universe. And to Roman Reigns, wherever he was watching from. Jacob had returned not as a savior, But as the reckoning, the locker room was in shock. Word spread like wildfire. Jacob Fatu just destroyed Solo's team on live TV. For months, Solo Sikoa had ruled with fear. His ascension to leadership hadn't been blessed by the elders. It wasn't earned through tradition. It was taken, forcibly, in Roman Reigns' absence. And for a while, it worked. Wrestlers who once trembled at the sight of Roman now bowed to Solo. The name Bloodline became a weapon, a shadow cast across Raw and SmackDown, but that shadow had grown arrogant. And Jacob Fatu just ripped it apart backstage. Cameras didn't catch what happened next. WWE went off air too soon. But those in the arena saw it. After the show ended, Solo Sikoa was carried out by medical staff. He wasn't unconscious, he was humiliated. His loyal enforcers, broken, bruised, scattered like leaves in a storm. Paul Heyman, who had been suspiciously absent all night, was seen entering a black SUV before the segment ended, refusing to answer questions. He knew what was coming. Everyone did. Because Jacob Fatu's return wasn't random. It was calculated. This wasn't revenge. This was correction. Jacob hadn't forgotten what Solo did to Zilla Fatu. He hadn't forgotten the manipulation. The betrayals. The lies. When Zilla had stood up against Solo weeks ago, questioning the path the faction had taken, Solo didn't hesitate. He blindsided him. Brutalized him. Left him for dead backstage in a puddle of his own blood. No remorse. No explanation. Just a message. Fall in line or fall out of the bloodline. Jacob Fatu heard every word. And it killed him to stay silent. But he knew, retaliation without strategy is suicide. He had to wait for the moment that would shake the very bones of the company, and tonight, he found it. The WWE Universe exploded online. Within minutes, Jacob Fatu was trending worldwide. Hashtags like hashtag Bloodline collapse, hashtag Solo Sikoa exposed, and hashtag Fatu returns flooded Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Fans couldn't believe what they had seen, years of dominance unraveling in a single assault, but what made it more devastating wasn't just the return, it was the symbolism. Jacob Fatu didn't attack just to hurt Solo. He attacked because something sacred had been broken. The bloodline used to mean something. It used to represent tradition, discipline, loyalty. Roman Reigns built an empire based on respect, twisted, yes, but structured. Solo, blinded by ambition, turned it into a dictatorship. He surrounded himself with yes men. He alienated his own family. He waged war on his brothers, and now the war was coming home. Sources backstage said the atmosphere after the attack was tense, unlike anything in recent WWE history. One producer described it as a powder keg. Another called it the start of a civil war. But the most chilling response came from a bloodline insider who remained anonymous. He's not done. That was just the warning shot. Back at the hotel later that night, Jacob Fatu didn't speak to press. He didn't celebrate. There was no Instagram post, no post-show tweet. Just silence. Controlled. Deadly. His team released a single image to WWE.com, a black and white photo of Jacob in the hallway, hoodie on, knuckles taped, staring into the mirror. The caption was a quote from his late father, the Tonga Kid: "When your blood goes crooked, you don't cut it off. You straighten it." But what does that mean for the future? Because Solo Sikoa isn't going to let this go. His ego is too big. His pride too wounded. And now, he's exposed, the emperor with no clothes. Without his enforcers, without his control, without fear on his side, he's vulnerable, and that's exactly where Jacob wants him. The timing couldn't be more perfect. SummerSlam is weeks away. Roman Reigns is still missing in action. Paul Heyman? Mysteriously distant. And while Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk continue their own wars on Raw, a storm is building on SmackDown, one that could swallow the entire WWE Universe. And here's where it gets more terrifying. Jacob Fatu may not be alone. Zilla Fatu hasn't been seen since his brutal ambush by Solo. But insiders say he's been in regular contact with Jacob. Rumors are swirling that a new coalition may be forming, a faction not to restore the old bloodline, but to destroy what it has become. Not for titles. Not for TV time. But for family. For legacy, because Jacob Fatu isn't interested in being another main event player. He's here to burn it down and build something that actually means something. But what happens if Solo Sikoa strikes back first? Back in the WWE Performance Center, sources say Solo has already ordered recruitment trials. He's looking to rebuild. Bring in new enforcers. Wrestlers with no ties to Roman. No respect for tradition. Just violence. A darker bloodline. One source referred to the vision as the Knight family, a twisted version of the dynasty. One where rules don't exist. One where betrayal is a strategy, not a sin, and that's what makes this next chapter so dangerous. This isn't just a feud. This isn't just heel versus face. This is tribal war. A real power struggle rooted in generational trauma, in betrayal, in loyalty stretched to its breaking point. It's Roman Reigns' legacy being dragged into the dirt. It's the soul of the bloodline on the line, and the fans? They're no longer just spectators, they're witnesses to the fall of an empire, and the rise of something new. Jacob Fatu has arrived, and he's not leaving until justice is served. The next morning, WWE headquarters was flooded with calls, not just from media outlets, but from investors, board members, even overseas partners. What's happening with the bloodline? Was that return authorized? Is Roman coming back? Behind closed doors, panic was beginning to set in. Because unlike most returns, Jacob Fatu's wasn't approved by a press release. There was no hype package. No merchandise drop. No teaser campaign. Just pain, delivered live in front of millions, and it had cracked open the facade WWE had worked tirelessly to maintain. For 2 years, Solo Sikoa had been propped up as the enforcer-turned-leader, the man who would carry the family legacy forward in Roman's absence. But in one night, that illusion was shattered, and it wasn't just shattered in the ring, it was shattered in the locker room. Superstars who once bowed their heads when Solo walked by no longer lowered their gaze. There was a shift in the air. Respect doesn't survive a beatdown like that, not in WWE. And when your own blood turns against you in front of the world, the damage doesn't stop with bruises. It spreads. It infects everything. Solo was losing control. And Jacob was taking it back, inch by inch, arena by arena, moment by moment. But this wasn't just about violence. This was psychological warfare. 3 days later, Solo Sikoa showed up at WWE Raw, alone. No Thorne. No Koa. No Heyman. He walked through the curtain without music. Without pyro. Without a single ounce of the bravado that had carried him for months. The fans booed, but not out of hate, out of realization. They saw a man unraveling. He stood in the ring, microphone in hand. His voice, normally thunderous, was quiet. Controlled. I know what you saw. I know what he did. But this is far from over. Then his tone shifted. Jacob. I let you live in exile. I let you walk out of this family when Roman fell. And this? This is how you return? The boos grew louder, not at Jacob, but at Solo. The crowd wasn't with him anymore. They'd seen the arrogance. They'd seen the abuse. And now, they were seeing the consequences. You think this is your house? Solo sneered. Then show up at SummerSlam. Step into my ring. Face me like a man. Because when you do, I'll bury you next to the old bloodline. He dropped the mic and left, but the moment that sent shockwaves through the company didn't happen on Raw. It happened the next day. On Instagram, Jacob Fatu posted a single, grainy video, shot in black and white, standing outside the ruins of a broken wrestling ring in Florida. He looked directly into the camera, no shirt, knuckles bloodied, and said 4 words: Bloodline? You mean corpse? The video ended. 10 million views in under 2 hours. The war had officially begun. Back in Stamford, WWE Creative was scrambling. The Jacob vs. Solo match wasn't just a storyline anymore. It was becoming the focal point of SummerSlam. Ratings projections were revised. Merch mock-ups were rushed. Stakeholders were briefed. This wasn't just a return, this was an empire-shaking event, and yet, behind the excitement was a fear no one wanted to voice. Where is Roman Reigns? Because in every war, there's a king. And this one had gone silent. For months, the tribal chief had vanished. No matches. No promos. Not even sightings. Some said he was recovering. Others whispered that he was watching. Waiting. Measuring who was worthy of the throne he once ruled with iron precision, but now that throne had two claimants and both were drenched in blood. Jacob's return had redefined the power structure. And in doing so, he had opened the door for others to rise, or fall. Jacob Fatu, still out of action, was rumored to be training at an undisclosed location. A former Bloodline member, possibly Jimmy Uso, was allegedly contacted to act as a mediator between the fractured cousins. But what no one expected was the footage leaked. 3 days before SmackDown, private security footage was posted anonymously on Reddit and Twitter. The grainy video showed Jacob Fatu outside the WWE Performance Center, but he wasn't alone. With him was Jacob Fatu, and they weren't just talking. They were training suplexes, headbutts, submission drills. The caption beneath the video read, "Real blood. Real war. No chiefs. Just consequences." The wrestling world exploded. Podcasts, pundits, and insiders debated endlessly. Was Zilla returning at SummerSlam? Was Jacob forming a new faction? Could Solo survive a two-front assault? The truth? No one knew. Not even WWE, because Jacob wasn't just unpredictable, he was uncontrollable. At SmackDown that week, Solo Sikoa came out again, this time flanked by 3 unknown men. Huge. Silent. Masked. No names were given. No affiliation stated. But the message was clear, Solo was rebuilding. He was preparing. Not for a match. For war. He spoke only once. "You think Jacob Fatu is the future? He's the past, and I'm the one holding the knife." Backstage, tensions rose. Reports claimed that locker room leaders like Seth Rollins and Randy Orton had privately warned management, this storyline, if mishandled, could divide the audience permanently. But WWE wasn't backing down. They leaned in. The following week, WWE released a chilling SummerSlam promo. The screen opened with slow shots of Roman Reigns' old throne. Empty. Abandoned. Then flickers of Solo Sikoa, drenched in sweat, dripping in fury. Followed by Jacob Fatu, walking through fire, dragging a chain behind him. The final line of the trailer, "Only one survives the fire." Jacob Fatu vs Solo Sikoa, confirmed. But here's the catch, it wouldn't be a regular match. It would be a Samoan reckoning match. No disqualification. No pinfalls, only submission or knockout. The tribal war in the purest, most brutal form. And here's where it gets dangerous, Roman Reigns is expected to be watching. Whether from a skybox, backstage, or satellite feed, the tribal chief is rumored to return not to fight, but to judge. The throne may be empty now, but not for long, because one of these men will be crowned the new leader of the Bloodline. The other may not leave the ring at all. The atmosphere inside Allegiant Stadium was electric. 70,000 fans. Thousands of camera flashes. But under the noise, under the chants, under the pyro, there was tension. A heavy, invisible weight that made this main event feel different from anything WWE had delivered in years, because this wasn't about championships, this was about honor, blood, legacy. Jacob Fatu vs Solo Sikoa, Samoan reckoning match, no rules. No mercy. Only pain. The kind that doesn't heal with ice packs. The kind that doesn't fade when the lights go out. The match didn't begin with entrances. There was no music, just silence. The lights dimmed. A tribal drum beat echoed through the stadium. On screen, a cinematic package rolled. Roman Reigns, not seen in 6 months, appeared, but only his eyes. Staring. Unforgiving. Then the message, "Only one survives the fire." Solo Sikoa entered first. No mask. No theatrics. Just rage. He walked slowly down the ramp, flanked by the 3 masked giants he had introduced weeks prior. His fists were taped, chest heaving. He wasn't here to perform. He was here to destroy. Jacob Fatu followed, from the crowd. Through the people. Through the chaos. He didn't enter with an entourage. He didn't need one. His presence alone was a declaration. When he climbed over the barricade and stepped into the ring, the crowd came alive, a roar of respect and bloodlust. The bell never rang. This wasn't a match. It was war. The first strike came fast. Jacob lunged, a blur of fury, and tackled Solo to the mat. Punches rained. Solo scrambled up, nailed a thunderous Samoan spike, but Jacob didn't fall. He grinned through the pain. A man possessed. Tables, chairs, steel steps, nothing was off limits. Jacob tossed Solo through a barricade. Solo slammed Jacob into exposed turnbuckles. Both men bled. Not in the gimmick sense, real, crimson, dripping pain. Fans fell silent, not out of boredom, but awe. They weren't watching sports entertainment, they were watching tribal reckoning. At the 14-minute mark, something broke. Solo attempted a runnage on the outside steel ramp, but Jacob reversed it, planting Solo with a spinning Death Valley driver through a wooden platform at ringside. EMT swarmed. WWE staff motioned to stop the match. Jacob shoved them all away. He dragged Solo's limp body back into the ring, not to pin, but to finish. He wrapped a chain around Solo's neck, locked in a modified rear choke, screaming into the ether, "This is for Zilla. This is for Roman. This is for the truth." Solo didn't tap. He passed out. The ref, instructed only to end the match by submission or knockout, called for the bell. Jacob Fatu had won. The crowd erupted. But Jacob didn't celebrate. He stood over Solo's unconscious body, staring down, breathing heavy. Then the lights cut, pitch black, gasps. A single spotlight illuminated the entrance ramp, and there, in full black Samoan ceremonial gear, stood Roman Reigns. The tribal chief had returned. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just stared. Jacob stared back. Blood trickling down his chest, arms by his side, defiant. Roman slowly walked down the ramp. Every step felt like thunder. He stepped into the ring, past the broken remnants of his empire. He looked at Solo, unconscious. Then at Jacob, victorious, savage, unrelenting. Then he nodded once and left. No words. No music. No coronation. Just judgment, and the judgment was clear. Jacob Fatu had reclaimed the bloodline, not through politics. Not through manipulation. Through war. Post SummerSlam fallout. We went silent after the event. No official statement from Roman Reigns. No tweets from Solo Sikoa. No press release from Paul Heyman. Only one cryptic post from Jacob Fatu, 3 a.m. After SummerSlam he saw it. That's all I needed. Backstage, however, was chaos. Triple H reportedly called a closed-door meeting to determine how to handle Roman's return, and whether he had actually approved Jacob Fatu's coronation. According to one source, Roman doesn't speak unless it's final. That nod wasn't a tease. It was anointing. Meanwhile, Solo Sikoa vanished. Removed from travel bookings. His locker cleared out. Some said he flew home to San Jose. Others believed he was placed on internal discipline suspension. Nothing confirmed, but one thing was clear: Solo Sikoa was no longer the leader. The bloodline had a new chief, and he wasn't interested in legacy. He was interested in justice. Backstage rumors and locker room shift. The ripple effect was immediate. Multiple stars reportedly requested to be part of Jacob's new movement. Not for storyline glory, but because Jacob's performance at SummerSlam earned respect from peers who never bought into the bloodline hype under Solo. Zilla Fatu was seen backstage at the post-SummerSlam Raw taping, smiling, fist-bumping crew, speaking quietly with Jacob. Whispers say he may be cleared for in-ring return soon, and Paul Heyman, nowhere to be found. The man who once orchestrated every move within the bloodline had gone ghost. Some say he's waiting, others say he's hiding, because now, the question isn't whether Jacob Fatu is the new tribal chief. It's whether he forgives those who broke the family to begin with, and at the top of that list, maybe Heyman himself. Final scene: Roman's reflection in a leaked post-show WWE Network exclusive. Cameras captured Roman Reigns walking through a dark hallway backstage, alone. He stops at a mirror, stares, and whispers, "It's yours now." The screen fades to black. The Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam opened not with music, but with silence. A slow zoom on the ring. A steel chair placed dead center. A spotlight shining like a confessional, and then, Jacob Fatu walked in. No pyro. No entrance theme. Just boots on canvas. Bloodline insignia printed across his new sleeveless hoodie, but stylized differently. Sharper. Rougher. Like it had been cut with a blade, not embroidered with royalty. He sat in the chair, leaned forward, and stared into the camera. 10 seconds of silence. The crowd didn't chant, they waited. Then he spoke. No more lies. No more false kings. This is my house now. A roar erupted. Not just from the live crowd, but across the WWE Universe. It was confirmation. Final. No ambiguity. Jacob Fatu was the Bloodline now. Then he dropped the line that shattered the backstage foundation. Solo. I spared you. That was your last mercy. The message was clear. Solo Sikoa was not dead, but he was warned. And if he returned, it wouldn't be a match. It would be exile. And then Jacob stood and walked away, but as he reached the top of the ramp, the lights flickered, not off, not blackout, just static. Then a video played on the Titantron. CCTV footage. Blurry. Grainy. Paul Heyman. Inside what looked like a private jet. On the phone. The audio crackled, but one sentence came through, unmistakable. He thinks he's in control. But this family doesn't belong to Jacob. The crowd gasped. Then, the camera cut to black. A final message flashed in white text. He's coming back. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, #Heyman leaks trended worldwide. WWE.com crashed. Fans flooded forums with theories. Was Heyman forming a new faction? Was he reuniting with Solo? Was Roman pulling strings again from the shadows? But here's what the fans didn't see, what happened backstage. Triple H held a private talent meeting before the show began. And one thing was made crystal clear: you're either with the new era, or you're out of the Bloodline entirely. WWE's creative team had been divided for months. Half wanted Jacob Fatu to burn everything down and rebuild a new Samoan dynasty. The other half? Still loyal to the myth of Roman Reigns, and more importantly, to the mind of Paul Heyman. And that's when it happened. Zilla Fatu arrived, not through the front doors. Not backstage with producers. He came through the crowd. In full street gear. Walked up the steps. Entered the ring mid-segment, while Finn Balor and Damian Priest were delivering a promo. And stared them down. Security rushed the ring. Zilla didn't flinch. Instead, he grabbed a mic and calmly said, "The old Bloodline beat you with politics. We'll beat you with war." Then he walked out. No attack. No warning, just declaration. Jacob Fatu was building something. And now Zilla had rejoined the family. Publicly. On camera. No suits. No Rolexes. No tribal beads. This new Bloodline isn't about pageantry. It's about pain, and Jacob Fatu has made it clear: we don't run the show with handshakes and catchphrases. We run it with scars. But there's a threat creeping into the background, and it's got Paul Heyman's fingerprints all over it. Solo Sikoa, reconstruction inexile. Solo hasn't spoken since SummerSlam, but insiders leaked footage from the WWE Performance Center, security cam grabs of Solo training alone. No crew. No support. Just him, a heavy bag, and the same 3 masked men who once walked behind him. And the caption? Handwritten across a whiteboard in the background: Blood in. Blood out.